Do you want to handle your money like a boss? Well, that's exactly what we're going to address in this video today. If you've made that commitment that you understand how money works, you're saving, but you know it's a game that has to be played, and you feel like you're either on the inside or the outside, or you're right, and I'm going to give you 3 laws today that if you understand them, they're going to help you get into the game and understand what it's like to be on the inside, not the outside. I'm Ryan Payne. I run a firm out of New York City, Payne Capital Management. I've been managing money for people now for over 20 years, a Wall Street professional, and I'm going to give you that insider advice. And if you like this content, you dig this content, you feel it, please give me some love. Slap on that like button, slam on it, I don't know, however you want to do it, hit that like button, and with no further ado, let's get you to understand money like a boss. So when it comes to wealth is a very broad term, can mean a lot of different things, but for intents and purposes of this video, what I want you to think about as wealth is having freedom, right? Having the ability to do what you want to do, not being beholden to an employer, or having a job you don't like, or working because you want to, not because you have to. But essentially you've built this pile of wealth over here, or money, that basically can create an income or a passive income stream so that you can really live the life that you want to live and on your terms. Now, it's important because there's a distinction between what I would call being rich and being wealthy, okay? And being rich is, I've got a dope car, I've got that gold Lamborghini. I always think about a gold Lamborghini. I spent too much time in Miami. Or just things that, you know, we associate with wealth in a superficial way. And I can tell you from experience, from clients, from people that I work with, those that are quote unquote rich, they might have a lot of cash flow coming in, but they're spending it on all this superfluous stuff and all these things. That's not being wealthy, right? Because you're still having to hustle, trying to make that paycheck so you can basically keep this lifestyle up that essentially, well, is not giving you freedom because you're kind of a slave to your lifestyle is a better way of looking at it. So when it comes to wealth, and this is my first rule, you have to understand wealth is about freedom. Being rich is about a slave to some sort of like image or some sort of lifestyle that's perceived as having money, and you really want to stay away from that, because when you're building your goals about the life that you want to live on your terms, I can tell you from the clients that I have and people that I know, the richest, you wouldn't even know that they're wealthy because they have a very modest lifestyle, even though they may have millions upon millions in the bank. And even if you are right now making good money, you've really got to ask yourself, like, what things are important? And again, how can I live life on my terms, and how can money be a vehicle to do that? So my first law, and the first thing you really want to understand is, do I want to be rich? Do I want to be wealthy? And if I make that right decision and be wealthy, what are the steps I need to take to create an environment so that I can have that freedom that I've dreamed about? And how do I have to build my wealth in a way that it's going to create for me income streams later, so I don't have to hustle like I am today, and I'm not a slave to that lifestyle. So what I want to presume here is you are actually saving your money. And if you need to learn more about that, I've done a couple videos on building your own balance sheet or income statement. But I'm going to assume right now you are serious about your money, you are saving it, and you are really thinking about where that money should be invested. And one thing I think is so important, and something you need to really hammer in when you're doing this and ask yourself is, do I understand what I'm invested in? Okay, and there's so many investments today that you might be in, maybe making money, thinking you're killing it, think you're crushing it, and think you understand it, but you actually don't. And I'll give you some examples of that. Like, do you really understand Bitcoin? Do you really understand Tesla? And as I'm recording this, the stock is going to the moon. And maybe you've made some money short term in those things, but do you understand the risk? And a lot of times too, you may get pitched something from a financial professional like myself. And it might sound like something that sounds complicated and sexy, and I want to get into that. But ask yourself, because believe me, this isn't rocket science. Do I understand what was pitched to me? Do I understand how this product or this investment works? And if you can't understand it like a third grader, then my advice is you don't walk away, you run. Because nothing in terms of investing should be complicated. It should be intuitive. You should be able to understand it, as opposed to just getting into something because you think it's hot, or someone pitched something that sounded good but you didn't quite understand it. It's a big, big distinction. It's important. And it's even more important because, again, wealth planning, not being rich, is about the long game, not the short game. And good investing is not about that instant gratification of maybe you bought Bitcoin, or maybe you bought NIO, the Chinese electric vehicle maker, which just like skyrocketed this year, and you don't really know why it skyrocketed this year, even though your friends talk about it and you have all these theses. But the important part about that is good investing tends to be back-ended, not front-ended. So if you're getting like instant gratification in some of these trades right now, and I'm talking about that specifically right now because a lot of markets are really, really hot, is that going to create the most wealth long term? And I'm going to guess, in most cases, probably not. So what you want to start to understand is the things I'm invested in today, because investing is about something long term, right? You're buying something today that's going to basically reap a lot of benefits sometime in the future, down the line. And that's exactly what you have to think about is like, what is this going to look like down the line? Am I going to invest today to create something that's going to be essentially a benefit to me later? Not next week or the week after because I got a big pop-up in something that I bought, or again, something I don't really understand that I'm just invested in and I can't see what that's going to do for me long term. So understanding what you're investing in is my second law. It's so critical, and it's going to be basically one of those game changers that's going to make sure, again, that you're building something for the long term, not the short term. So for my third law, when it comes to building your net worth and you're amassing the savings and it feels really good to finally start to build up, but I love to call it just a big pile of cash, right? There's something about that that sounds like this fortress that you're building with money, is there's good risk and there's bad risk. Your money needs to work for you. And maybe right now you're sitting in cash and you're earning, I don't know, the best money market rate in the country at 2%, if you're even getting that right now. I'm not sure as I'm recording this. Well, cost of living over time is going up more than that. In fact, it's averaged more like 3% since World War II. So over your lifetime, my lifetime, and many other generations' lifetimes. So what's important about that is, even though you're sitting in cash and your money's safe, it kind of reminds me of this boat next to me right now. It's sitting in the harbor here. It doesn't have to worry about the storms and other things that might, basically encounter when you go to sea. Well, you're not going to go anywhere. And it's the same with your money. If your money's not growing over time and it is sitting in cash, that's a risk because you're losing purchasing power over time. Just like if I'm in this boat safe in the harbor, well, yeah, okay, I'm not going to worry about the storms at sea, but I'm never going to go anywhere. Now, on the flip side, yes, investments do have risk. They are going to be volatile. They're going to go up and down. But at the end of the day, you're going to grow that money if you take some risk. And taking risk in some cases is not a risk. It's actually ensuring that your money over time does grow so you can keep up with the cost of living. And that's a really, really important point. And I think right now more than ever, because there's so much uncertainty in the world, and I talk about this in my videos, and there's so many things we can't anticipate, it feels good to have that big stockpile sitting in cash. But the reality of it is there's a lot of risk there. And if you just sit in cash, you don't make decisions, eventually over time, you're actually going to have the risk of not being able to be independent when you want to, retire when you want to. So it's so important, and it's probably one of the most critical things you can do is think about how you can grow your money, because the biggest risk over time is not growing your wealth. So now you have my playbook, you have some guidelines that I use when it comes to my clients, when it comes to creating wealth, and it's just so important. It is about creating wealth, right? Being rich sounds great, but it's not the same thing as having independence down the line and creating the type of life that you really want to live and how money can actually do that for you. That's being wealthy. The other thing too, remember, there's good, bad investments. You've got to make sure that the investments you're in actually make sense with your game plan. And you need to understand it. It shouldn't be that complicated. And I'm guilty of this. I'm on Wall Street. Wall Street purposely makes this stuff more complicated than it has to be. But it should be intuitive. It shouldn't be complex enough that you don't understand it. And that's the case. That's not the investment for you. And lastly, you have to grow your money or you're losing. It's a huge risk, and I don't care if you have millions of dollars. I see this mistake made all the time, or you're just getting started out. Money sitting in cash, not working for you, you're never going to get to any sort of destination. You're always going to be sitting in the harbor, and that's not what you want. So let's take the complexity out of this. This doesn't have to be harder than you think it is, and by understanding some of these laws today, hopefully you can apply them right away. Get on that path to creating what we call that financial independence. That's where we want to go. And again, if you like my content, you're into it, you feel the love, then please give me the love. Click on that like button, subscribe, get my channel out there, please. And as always, stay loose and keep an open mind.